The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and welcome to week 3 of Camp Remax 2016. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me, so if you can just type in the message box that you can both hear me and see my screen, that would be great. Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so my name is Amanda Ward, and I am a training specialist here at Remax Integra. And once again, we're really excited to have real estate professionals joining us from over 40 different countries, which is truly incredible. We're so excited to have so many great people joining us from all around the world. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's session, which was entertaining and educating with visuals. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about working with difficult people. Now, before we get started, just want to remind you guys to be sure to follow along with us on Twitter with @CampRemax and on our Facebook page at facebook.com/CampRemax. We are also on Instagram, so don't forget to use the hashtag #CampRemax so you can chat with your fellow campers, share your thoughts with us too. We love hearing from you guys to see where you're joining us from, so please feel free to interact. As always, these sessions are recorded and they will be posted on facebook.com/CampRemax for you to watch later and share. So, in keeping with our theme for Camp Remax this year, which is the county fair, our word for this week is fireworks, and our topic is working with difficult people. Now, this is something I think we've all had to deal with now and again, so hopefully today you'll come away with a few strategies on how to make that process a little easier. So, in today's session, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between a disagreement and a conflict and how you can recognize that difference. Then, we're going to discuss some great techniques to understand people who are being difficult. We're also going to look at some of the challenges that come along with working with other real estate agents. I think, we've all had that difficult client now and again, but sometimes the thing that brings us the most stress is actually having to work with another agent. So we'll talk about that a little. And lastly, we're going to review some communication strategies to help us understand how to deal with difficult people in our everyday business transactions. So let's get started. Now, in a perfect world, everybody would get along all the time and we could all just work together to accomplish the same goals. But it would be like a spectacular fireworks show that's perfectly timed and set to music. Now, unfortunately, the world is not perfect and dealing with difficult people is simply part of our life. It's how you deal with those difficult people that will determine whether or not you can excel and move forward, or whether your firework is going to crash and burn. So let's start by going over some strategies that can help us understand those difficult people. Every realtor has had at least one, right? As a matter of fact, if you've only had one, you can count yourself lucky. The client who complains about your ridiculously high fees, or who calls at 10 o'clock at night demanding immediate attention. Or how about the client who expects you to hold an open house every weekend? What's a realtor to do? Well, first of all, you have to realize that those demanding clients are a fact of life in our business. And here's why. Buying and selling a home is the single largest financial transaction that most people will ever make. And when large sums of money are on the line, even the coolest client can morph into a monster. Now, when they do, how you react to their questions and demands will greatly determine the outcome of your relationship. Having said that, there will be a big difference between simply having a disagreement with someone and having a conflict. So let's examine that a little bit further. A disagreement is an argument or a situation in which people don't have the same opinion. Now, the reason for this difference of opinion is usually because you and the other person don't necessarily have the same interests, the same values, or because you have different needs and intentions. But disagreeing with someone isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be viewed as a positive and functional as well as natural. It doesn't have to lead to a huge fight, and it can actually end on a positive note. Disagreement forces you to change, to be innovative, and to find better ways to do things. But it can also help you develop new skills and use improved resources. Now, conflict, on the other hand, is a friction or opposition that results from real or perceived differences or incompatibilities. It's basically a powerful collision or dispute of needs, values, interests, and intentions between two people. Now, for conflict to exist, the people must first recognize each other and understand that each person has an opposing idea. For conflict to happen, interactions between the two people is required. Unlike disagreement, conflict is considered unhealthy competition and very dysfunctional. It includes distrust, hostility, lack or loss of sympathy, and suspicion. Now, conflict happens when needs aren't met or when a person is seen as obstructing the goals of another person. It also entails struggling over resources and power. So, conflict differs from disagreement because of its outcome. It's usually a negative one. So, how do we prevent a disagreement from turning into a conflict? Well, the key is communication. When you are in the midst of a disagreement, you have to continue to communicate, but you need to do it in the right manner. Be aware of your voice and its pitch, your tone, the speed at which you're talking, and how loud you're talking. Try to control your nonverbal gestures. Don't ever get in someone's face or in their personal space because this is intrusive and it will be interpreted as a threat. Now, this behavior can quickly change one of those disagreements into a conflict. And when faced with conflict, people tend to respond to it based on their understanding of the situation, rather than looking at the situation objectively and coming to an unbiased understanding. If communication is open between the parties, then disagreement doesn't have to necessarily turn into a conflict. So let's talk about some communication techniques that will help us to stay composed in the face of unreasonable or unrelenting demands from our clients. The first step in being able to communicate effectively with a difficult person is going to be figuring out why it is they're being difficult. Now, often we're not able to connect with our client. It's because we're trying to convince them to see things our way, from our perspective. Unfortunately, that attempt is futile, and in fact, it works just the opposite. You have to communicate your position through their perspective, and to do this, you have to understand what the client's challenge is. You do that by asking. Repeat the concern, and if you still don't understand why it's a concern, ask again until you get that clear picture from them. The second technique is going to be setting expectations in advance. Now, if we can determine what is and isn't possible with our clients ahead of time, then we can lay the groundwork for positive client communications throughout that buying and selling process. Give that client a clear picture of what that process looks like and how you plan to interact with them. Now, this works best if you put the information in writing and include it in a welcome packet that you can give to your clients at your first meeting. Creating that kind of a framework in the very first meeting will establish your reputation as a true professional. You'll be someone who is well organized with a solid plan to give to your clients and make sure that they get what they want and they need. It also sets the tone for your entire relationship, which will include certain boundaries. Now, will this plan remove demanding clients from your life altogether? Absolutely not. But what it can do is help you turn someone who is or who might be a demanding client into someone who would be more understanding and patient when those kinds of issues arise. The last communication technique is to listen and then understand before you act. If you have a difficult client, the biggest priority should be listening to them. Make it a point to really listen with understanding to what they're saying. Many times, what you heard isn't necessarily what they meant. They may be in a high anxiety state about moving to a new community or possibly losing money on the sale of their home. Often, their speech and body language will give you clues about what's really going on with them. Don't respond abruptly or out of anger, and remember that often all a person really wants is to be heard and understood. Allow them to voice their concerns and let them talk until they finish. Really try to understand where it is that they're coming from. Now, this serves two purposes. The first is that they get their concerns off their chest and they know that you care. And the second is that you find out if their concerns are actually legitimate. Many times the concerns seem to have no ground, but if you try to understand why it's important to them, you may find yourself being more open to finding a solution. And then once they're finished, you can reassure them and try to come up with a way to make them happy. Now, there is a difference between simply hearing the words a person's telling you and actively listening to them. A good way to improve your listening skills is to practice active listening. Now, this is where you make a conscious effort to hear not only the words that another person is saying, but more importantly, try to understand the complete message being sent. In order to do this, you really have to pay attention to the other person carefully. So let's talk about some tips to make sure that you're actively listening. The first is to pay attention. Now, give the person your undivided attention and acknowledge their message. Recognize that nonverbal communication can also speak very loudly. So look at the person directly, watch their body language, and put aside any distracting thoughts. Don't be mentally preparing a rebuttal while they're talking to you. The second is to show that you're listening. So use your own body language and gestures to convey your attention. Now, this can include things like nodding occasionally, smiling, and using other facial expressions. But it can also be things like adjusting your posture to make sure that it's open and inviting, and encouraging the person to continue with small verbal things like yes and uh-huh. The third active listening technique is going to be to provide feedback. You can reflect on what has been said by paraphrasing to make sure that you're understanding everything. You can also ask questions to clarify certain points and try to summarize the speaker's comments every once in a while. Fourth, we have no interrupting. Now, interrupting is a waste of time. All it does is frustrate the person who's talking and limits your full understanding of their message. So allow a person to finish each point before asking questions and don't interrupt with counter arguments. And then lastly, we have responding appropriately. Active listening is a model for respect and understanding. So you're gaining information and perspective. You add absolutely nothing by attacking the person who's talking or otherwise putting them down. So try to be candid, open, and honest in your response. Assert your opinions respectfully and treat the other person in a way that they would like to be treated. So while dealing with difficult clients can be very challenging, dealing with difficult real estate agents can often be the biggest challenge in our industry. Again, we've all had that experience of trying to negotiate an offer with an agent who makes things a lot more complicated than they have to be. The world of real estate is a very small one, and your reputation in the business can define who you are and how your colleagues and clients perceive you. So it's even more important to keep your cool when you're dealing with another agent in the industry. Let's look at some different types of difficult agents and maybe some strategies to deal with those types of people. So first, we have the agent who won't call you back. Is there anything more frustrating than when you've just gotten an offer signed and you're excited to set up a presentation time? You call the listing agent and then fast forward to 3 hours later and you still haven't heard back from them. Now your clients are calling you, wondering what's going on, and you start to lose your cool. Well, as frustrating as this situation is, it won't help anyone to go ballistic on the agent once they do finally give you a call back. As hard as it can be, remember that there could be a very valid reason why that person hasn't called you back. And if you let yourself get angrier and angrier as time goes by, there's a higher chance that you're going to show your frustrations in your tone when they do finally call. And after all, at the end of the day, you both have one common goal, which is to get a house sold. So give that person the benefit of the doubt, and once you do get a hold of them, try explaining in a calm manner that your clients are just really excited and you'd like to be kept informed so that you can keep them informed. Sometimes when you position things from your client's perspective, the other agent will be more understanding than if you simply tell them that you're really annoyed with them for not calling you back fast enough. Kill them with kindness whenever possible. Then we have the agent who thinks they know more than you. Now, this agent has usually been in the business for 10 years or more and makes sure that everybody knows about it. And they're convinced that nobody could possibly know more than they do about selling real estate. They also refuse to learn anything new because they've seen it all. Now, this can be one of the most difficult types of real estate agents to deal with because they refuse to listen to anything you have to say. I know I ran into this oftentimes when I was selling real estate, and it was very frustrating. But one of the worst things I found you can do with someone like this is to challenge them or try to argue with them. Once again, it's about using those listening skills and communication skills to be able to represent your client the best way possible. So I found that the best approach to these kinds of agents is to start with a compliment. If they're going on and on about how long they've been in the business, say something like, "Wow, 20 years in the business is amazing. I'll bet I could learn a lot from you." Now, a statement like that softens them up a little and makes them treat you in more of a teacher-student manner than a parent-child manner. And at the end of the day, if you have if you have to be the bigger person and stroke their ego a little to get along, you're the one who's going to come out the winner by protecting your reputation and doing what's best for your clients. Then we have the opposite end of the spectrum, which is the brand new agent. Now, they just got their license, they know nothing about how to negotiate an offer, but usually have some great enthusiasm. Where it can get frustrating is when they constantly make mistakes and you have to keep walking them through the process, reminding them of timelines and paperwork, etc. With agents like this, it's important to remember that we've all been there. You were once a new agent too, and hopefully you had someone who took you under their wing and guided you through one of your first deals. This is where putting yourself in the other person's shoes will really help you to channel your frustrations into some empathy. Hopefully you come away from the situation feeling like you really helped someone instead of simply being angry and annoyed. And lastly, we have the agent who takes things really personally. During negotiations, it can sometimes be hard to remember that it's not us versus them. Our jobs as real estate agents is to mediate between buyers and sellers to come to a mutual agreement. It can sometimes be a good idea to remind the other agent of this if they seem to be getting angry with you because of something you've simply changed in the offer. Remind them that you represent your clients, but that at the end of the day, you're there to make a deal with them, and you're going to do your best to make that happen. Sometimes those agents just need to be reminded that we do have a common goal. Now, we've discussed in several ways what listening and communication is the key to dealing with difficult people. So let's look at some communication strategies to help us interact with those difficult people a little more effectively. So our first strategy is going to be practicing some self-management. When you encounter someone who seems determined to get under your skin, simply ask yourself, do I own this problem? If some offhanded comment or oversight on your part triggered a reaction, then take responsibility, apologize, and move on. If the client is simply being uncooperative, then shift the focus. Try offering a positive or encouraging solution. Keep smiling and don't lose your cool. Your own inner peace is what's important, and above all, don't take it personally. How you react to a difficult client is going to speak to your level of professionalism. Our second strategy is listening constructively. Now, listening is one of the most important skills you can have, and how well you listen has a major impact on your effectiveness and on the quality of your relationships with your clients. Research actually suggests that we remember between 25 to 50% of what we hear. That means that when you talk to someone for 10 minutes, they pay attention to less than half of the conversation. Turn it around, and it also reveals that when you are receiving directions or being presented with information from someone, you aren't hearing the whole message either. You can't allow yourself to become distracted by whatever else may be going on around you, or by forming counter arguments in your mind that you'll make when the other person stops talking. Nor can you allow yourself to really get bored and lose focus on what the other person is saying. All of these things contribute to a lack of listening and understanding. Third, we have this, acknowledging the problem. So acknowledgement can be very important in diffusing a situation. You aren't necessarily agreeing with the person, you're simply indicating that you've heard them, you understand the issue at hand. You should also try to respond to the person in a way that will both encourage them to continue speaking so that you can get all the information you need. Now, while nodding and saying says that you're interested, an occasional question or comment to recap what has been said communicates that you understand the message really well. Our fourth strategy is creating boundaries. Different types of demands call for different responses. If you have one of those clients who calls randomly throughout the day with countless questions and needs more information, don't feel compelled to answer every call. Instead, try using an affirmative suggestion. So, for an example, I know you have lots of questions, Mr. Seller, so if you can keep a list and I'll check in with you every day around 2 o'clock, then we can update each other. Now, what's important about that boundary statement is that it's positive in nature. It tells the client what you can do rather than what you can't or won't do. In this example, setting up a scheduled update call can eliminate a lot of unnecessary back and forth and the frustration that goes along with that. So having boundaries will ensure that you protect your personal life and private time, which can both be very important for your mental health and your personal productivity. And last is to pre-screen your clients whenever possible. Now, one of the best ways to avoid having to deal with a difficult client altogether is to identify them before you take them on as a client and then choose not to work with them. Prior to working with any client, it can be a good idea to conduct a pre-client interview and ensure that you can work well together. As we all know, each individual has different needs and wants, and it's important to know that theirs are in line with yours. After the interview, you can determine if it's going to be a good fit and choose whether or not to proceed. Now, we can't always pick and choose who our clients are going to be, but we can decide how we're going to deal with the situation. So if a situation like that comes up, try to put yourself in the shoes of the party that you're having an argument with. What are their struggles? What are their challenges? And ask yourselves how you can help that person. So to end things off today, I'd like to leave you with these final thoughts. In life, we will encounter difficult people, and how you interact with them is completely up to you. Start by recognizing if the situation you're experiencing is a disagreement or a conflict. Use the communication techniques of asking yourself why this person is being difficult and setting expectations to really listen and understand. Be deliberate with your listening and remind yourself frequently that your goal is to truly hear what the other person is saying. Set aside all other thoughts and behaviors and concentrate on the message. Ask questions, reflect, and paraphrase to ensure that you understand their message. And if you don't, then you'll find that what sometimes someone says to you and what you hear can be very different. Above all else, try to understand where a person is coming from and never lose your cool, because at the end of the day, you are the true professional, and as such, you have to act in a professional manner. So, last week we asked you guys to post your best clown nose selfie. Now, we loved seeing all of your submissions, including a full on actual clown, which was really awesome. Thank you guys so much for posting and participating. There were some really great favorites from last week, so here's a few examples. It was a really tough decision, but Camper of the Week for last week goes to Kristen Long from Remax Realty Associates in Champaign, Illinois. Now, we chose this one as the winner because it's a true selfie with a clown nose, and you got those bonus points for the other clown props. So congratulations to Kristen on being our second Camper of the Week. Now, as you guys know, every week we like to name a new Camper of the Week here at Camp Remax, and we give you a challenge and a way to interact with us and with each other. So we've already mentioned that there's going to be a prize this year for the best Camper of the Week, which we'll determine at the end of summer. It's going to be really great, so you don't want to miss out. And as always, if you're selected as Camper of the Week, you also get your name and contact info shared with everyone attending, which is over 1,000 agents in over 40 different countries. So it's lots of fun, and it's also a fantastic networking opportunity for you. So your challenge for next week, in keeping with our theme of dealing with difficult people, is to post a photo of your favorite way to wind down at the end of a difficult day. Now remember to keep it PG, folks, but whether it's a glass of wine, some chocolate ice cream right out of the container, or maybe it's reading a good book, we want to know what relaxes you when you've had a rough day. So make sure you use the hashtag CampRemax, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter, and if you're posting on Instagram, make sure that you do tag Camp Remax in it. So also feel free to go to our Facebook page and comment on everyone else's photos as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this session. We look forward to seeing you all again next Thursday, same time. The word for next week is blue ribbon, and we're going to be talking about some great strategies to help you be successful with your geographic farming. It's going to be really fantastic. I think you're going to learn a lot. So have a great week, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.